Hello and welcome to Module 4. The focus of Module 4 is How Does Learning Happen? Ontario's Pedagogy for the Early Years. Our hope is that throughout this module, our new educators will gain a better understanding of how does learning happen, Ontario's pedagogy for the early years. We will also look at the 4 foundations and see how they are being used in our programs. There will also be an opportunity for reflective practice activities to strengthen these foundations. So where did How Does Learning Happen come from? Well, it all started in January 2013. The Ontario government released the Ontario Early Years Policy Framework, which has since been revised in 2017. This framework articulated the following vision for all early years programs. Following the release of the framework and the vision statement, system leaders, experts, professionals, and practitioners from all segments of the early years sector collaborated to create How Does Learning Happen? Ontario's Pedagogy for the Early Years. So what is How Does Learning Happen? Well, How Does Learning Happen is a professional resource guide about learning through relationships. It is also intended for those working with young children and their families, and is intended to support pedagogy and curriculum program development in the early years. By learning what How Does Learning Happen is, we have also learned what it is not. How Does Learning Happen is not a curriculum. It does not give us the content of the learning that we share with children. How Does Learning Happen is also not a standalone document. It has many companion documents that can be found on the Ministry of Education website. How Does Learning Happen is also not intended to give us all the answers. The title itself is a question. How does learning happen? The reason for this is that it's meant to provoke thought, inquiry, and reflective practice of the educator and all of those working with children. How Does Learning Happen has some key elements that we will be looking at over the next few slides. The first one is the definition of key terms. Second, impact of relationships. Third, the 4 foundations, including goals for children and expectations for program, and of course, the questions for reflection. Throughout How Does Learning Happen, there are some key terms that are used. Through the next few slides, we will investigate these key terms: pedagogy, curriculum, educator, pedagogical documentation, and critical reflection. One of the key terms that is used consistently in How Does Learning Happen is the word pedagogy. According to Early Learning for Every Child Today, or ELECT, pedagogy is the understanding of how learning takes place and the philosophy and practice that support that understanding of learning. Our second term that we are going to look at is curriculum. Early years curriculum is the sum total of experiences, activities, and events that occur within an inclusive environment designed to foster children's well-being, learning, and development, and ensure meaningful participation for every child. Another term that How Does Learning Happen helped to define for our profession was the term educator. The term educator throughout the document refers to all who work with children and family in the early years, including center-based programs, home child care, child and family programs, and school-age before and after school programs. Our next key term we are going to look at is pedagogical documentation. According to Carolyn Ween, pedagogical documentation supports educators in both including their child development in their view, but also looking beyond development to capture broader aspects of experience for reflection. The last key term we are going to look at is critical reflection. Children learn through questioning and testing theories in their play, and educators should do the same. When educators engage in continuous professional learning and questioning, they achieve the best outcomes for children, families, and for themselves. Educators are researchers. One of the most inspiring pieces of How Does Learning Happen is the research, resources, and focus on the relationships that are built with and for children. Over the next few slides, we will explore how relationships are the key. Research has proven that during the first years of our life, the brain develops at an astounding rate. Scientists now know this process is not just genetic, but is dramatically influenced by our early experiences with people and our surroundings. Click on the red heart to hear Dr. Jean Clinton speak about this research. Acting according to our own views of children, families, and educators has a profound impact on what happens in the early years. How Does Learning Happen sets out a shared understanding of children, families, and educators as competent, capable, curious, and rich in potential. Click on the red heart to watch Dr. Jean Clinton discuss the impact of our views. How Does Learning Happen offers us a view of children as competent, capable of complex thinking, curious, and rich in potential. They grow up in families with diverse social, cultural, and linguistic perspectives. When we recognize all children as capable and curious, we are more likely to deliver programs and services that value and build on their strengths and abilities. How Does Learning Happen also offers a more complex view of children and invites us as educators to not only look at a child through a development lens, but expand those views to look at who children are as a whole, creatively, aesthetically, as well as spiritually. These dimensions need to be viewed in order to give us a more complex and complete view of the child. So now let's look at a view of families. Families are composed of individuals who are capable and competent and curious and rich in potential. Families love their children and want the best for them. They are the first and most powerful influence on children's learning, development, health, and well-being. And last but certainly not least is our view of educators. Educators are competent and capable, curious and rich in experience. They are knowledgeable, caring, reflective, and resourceful professionals. They collaborate with others to create engaging environments and experiences. Educators are lifelong learners. This quote directly from How Does Learning Happen is incredibly impactful. Just remember, there is perhaps no relationship that holds greater responsibility or reward than the relationships we develop with children. Over the next few slides, we will explore the 4 foundations of How Does Learning Happen. We will also look at the goals and expectations for programs, as well as hear from some of our operational leads on how they embed the 4 foundations into their programs and practices. How Does Learning Happen is organized around 4 foundational conditions that are important for children to grow and flourish. They are belonging, well-being, engagement, and expression. These foundations can also be considered ways of being and are a vision for all children's future potential and a view of what they should experience every day. How Does Learning Happen also includes goals for children and expectations for programs that are organized around the 4 foundations. The goals and expectations help educators to strive to provide the best experiences and outcomes for children, families, and educators. Over the next few slides, we will explore the foundations and the goals and expectations. The goals for children are not intended to be used as a checklist of tasks to be completed. Instead, they are intended to be used by educators in planning and creating environments and experiences for children's learning. They are also intended to guide the process of documentation. Expectations for programs. The expectations for programs align with the goals for children. They provide concrete ideas about how educators, families, and communities can work together. They are also meant as a starting point for further conversations and reflections. We will now look at the 4 foundations, goals, and expectations. The first foundation we are going to explore is belonging. Belonging refers to a sense of connectedness to others, an individual's experiences of being valued, of forming relationships with others, and making contributions as part of a group, a community, and the natural world. The goals for children in regards to belonging is that every child has a sense of belonging when he or she is connected to others and contributes to their world. So how do we do this? Early childhood programs cultivate authentic, caring relationships and connections to create a sense of belonging among and between children, adults, and the world around them.
Hi there, my name is Jessica and I'm an operational lead with the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic Child Care Centers in our School Age program. Within our School Age programs, we want to ensure that all educators and children feel a sense of belonging. One way that we do this is by creating identity panels. Identity panels are a piece of documentation that are hung in and around our programs. These pieces of documentation include a picture and a description about the educator or child that is being talked about. These pictures can be drawn or they can be realistic, whatever the educator or child would like. The description generally includes favorite foods, vacations that we've been on, pets that we have at home, just about anything that the child or educator wants to share with those reading it. In order to create a sense of belonging with our families, we've created these newsletters that get sent home monthly. The newsletters include basically anything that's going on in our programs. We talk about activities that are happening, research projects that are going on, and any possible next steps. We love to create a sense of belonging between our parents, our educators, and our children, and we want to make sure everyone feels like they're a part of our programs.
The second foundation is well-being. Well-being addresses the importance of physical and mental health and wellness. It incorporates capacities such as self-care, sense of self, and self-regulation skills. So now let's look at our goals and expectations for well-being. The goals for the children in the program in regards to well-being is that every child is developing a sense of self, health, and well-being. So how do we do this? Early childhood programs should nurture children's healthy development and support their growing sense of self. The third foundation is engagement. Engagement suggests a state of being involved and focused. When children are able to explore the world around them with their natural curiosity and exuberance, they are fully engaged. Through this type of play and inquiry, they develop skills which are essential for learning and success. So now let's look at our goals and expectations for engagement. The goals for children in our programs is that every child is an active and engaged learner who explores the world with body, mind, and senses. Early childhood programs should do this by providing environments and experiences to engage children in active, creative, meaningful play and inquiry. Our final foundation is expression. Expression or communication, to be heard as well as to listen, may take many forms. Through their bodies, words, and use of materials, children develop capacities for increasingly complex communication. Language and environment support growing communication skills, which are fundamental for literacy. So now let's look at our expression goals and expectations. The goals for children is that every child is a capable communicator who expresses himself or herself in many ways. In regards to expectations for programs, early childhood programs foster communication and expression in all forms. Another key component of How Does Learning Happen is the reflective questions section at the end of each of the foundations further exploration. The reflective questions support critical reflections and provide a means for discussing, interpreting, investigating, and acting on the goals for children.
How Does Learning Happen provides many suggestions on how to use the reflective questions, such as administrators, boards, parents, and educators may focus on several of the questions as they consider the policies and procedures in their programs, or educator teams may choose one question to study over a period of time. Another suggestion is that a group of educators from several programs may study their practice and share their experiences in relation to one of the goals for children. Karen Callahan reminds us of the importance of reflective practice by saying, by involving ourselves in a constant inquiry into what we believe, we will be on a journey of getting to be better and better as teachers all the time. Hamilton Wentworth Catholic Child Care Centers is happy to support your ongoing learning of How Does Learning Happen by offering our reflective practice series, professional learning opportunities, communities of practice, staff meetings, and conversations with your pedagogical leads and operational leads. Thank you so much for joining us for Module 4, a brief overview of How Does Learning Happen. There is still so much to learn and to explore. Please take the time to speak with your operational lead or pedagogical lead and talk to them about further opportunities.